Welcome all. We are in the verge of completing the sessions on indirect tax topic. Okay. So we had very good session on important topics, and we are now going to another important topic, which is on a procedural aspect, but very relevant because we need to know how do we comply with some procedures. Correct. So we will do this aspect of TDS in today's session. Okay. So last session we have discussed on registrations and other various topics. So we are very well averse of the, we are very well aware, not averse, we are very well aware of the registration, what is e-way bill, what is payment of tax. We have discussed all of those, right? Since we have covered all of that, now just few topics are left out, but very important, as we had said in the previous sessions, that the payment comes to the government through various modes. And one of the modes is that you go to the bank and make the payment, you transfer it. And one of the other modes was when somebody deducts tax and gives it to you. So whenever tax is being deducted by the other person, that is also one of the ways of depositing taxes to the government. So the this way, this topic is exactly after payment of taxes. Once we have understood payment of taxes, we will find a connect between the TDS and TCS provisions under GST. Okay. Before we get into this topic of TDS and TCS, I want to wish everyone a happy festivals because there are various festivals celebrated across the country in different names, which all falls on today itself. Happy Lori to people who are celebrating Lori. Happy Makar Sankranti to people who are celebrating Sankranti. Happy Pongal to people from the south. And Happy Bihu. So, all festivals, multiplicity of festivals we are seeing here. Very nice. Yes, Makar Sankranti, Happy Pongal. And I'm so happy that I was very doubtful whether students will attend today. But that's why I was asking the Board of Studies if you couldn't cancel today's class. But seeing your participation, Madam had said, no, don't worry. Today there will be lot of students who will join in. They are all celebrated their festival in the morning and now they will celebrate with you. So today is a celebration day for us in this Board of Studies family. We hope you have enjoyed today's day, had good celebration, had good sweets, had a good time with your family. I just had a good time with my family and I've come here. And after this, I'll again go and fly kites. So this is a good bonding day which we can have with the family members. Have a good time spent. Yes, yes. So morning be lectures, tha. Amazing, amazing. Students are so very dedicated. You're attending classes in the morning, then taking break, having your festivities in between and sandwiching the classes in between. That is really amazing. I will request the Board of Studies that don't stress students so much on a festival, but your commitment really shows that you are very interested. I hope they were full attendance in the morning also. Abhishek is saying happy Tilla Sakre. Okay, so many festivals. Very nice. Nice. Okay. Lori was yesterday. To Makar Sankranti is there. Okay, fine. We were discussing last time on payment of taxes and e-way bill, right? Like how we do every week. We will start with any queries from the previous topics. If you have any queries in the previous topics, please let me know. If not, then we'll get into our topic for the day. By the way, I had a conference and I met few chartered accountants there. One of the faculties was also present there. His name was Vishal Podar. Have you all heard him anytime? Okay. So what he teaches direct tax for you, or it teaches costing and income tax. Yeah, costing also and income tax. Very nice. Okay. Direct, indirect costing. Okay, direct costing and direct costing, costing and income tax. Very nice. So good to hear that. And Very nice. So he generally teaches through a presentation or the study material itself. So accounts of GST was taught by him. Okay, okay. Yeah, I got to know because of one session. Uh, some sessions had to be taken by him. I think he would have taken accounts under GST. Okay. So sometimes he uses PPT and sometimes study material. Okay. So how do you feel the difference between teaching through study material and studying through PPT? Which one is better? I know it's very subjective, but according to you, which is better? Yes, that is correct, Hardik, that both are okay till you understand the concept. But in terms of conceptualization, which one is better? Because I too teach PPT. I feel we can cover in PPT a lot of things. Very good comment by Mahi that only Deepak sir is better. चाहे PPT हो या ICAI study material. Okay. So that's a great compliment that whatever way I teach, that is okay for you. And PPT is best is what I've majorly heard. So we'll continue with PPT itself. Okay. So we'll start with our session for today. So that easy to understand study material afterwards. Very nice. Book is better when we read and PPT is better in most of the important concepts. Correct. Correct. So you have to read your books, no doubt in that. What I'm generally trying to say is whether in terms of teaching, yeah, I've got my answer for that. That teaching methodology with the PPT will be better because if you go through a book, then it may be that okay, you are just reading a book, then why do you need a lecturer? So that's why I will also prefer that we have a PPT. But wherever reference is required, saying that if there's any query you have and you want me to refer the book, I will definitely do that. Okay. Now we will start on tax deducted at source and tax collected at source. So what is tax deducted at source? You generally have learned this in your income tax, correct? So where do you have the relevance of TDS under income tax? You know TDS provisions and income tax more than the law perspective. Practically, you would have seen because you would have filed returns for others, you would have filed returns for your friends, you would have filed returns for yourself, right? So where do you see that returns when we file TDS under income tax is relevant? Because generally, when we say TDS, people get confused that uh, where do we draw the line? When we say TDS, they will feel that it is income tax TDS. No, very few places we say income tax TDS. One, when we discussed income tax TDS, was on the basis of charge, right? In the chapter of charge, we had discussed that supply and the valuation. The valuation includes all other taxes other than GST. So there the question came whether the TDS under income tax, that TDS was reference to income tax, whether the TDS deducted also should be a part of the value. Then the government has clarified through a circular saying that that TDS is a kind of apportionment. So you don't have to add that to the value of supply, right? So that is the only place where I see that income tax TDS is referred. All other places when we talk about TDS, interim levy, correct. It's an interim levy. Thanks, Hardik, for correcting that. TDS is an interim levy, not in the nature of a tax component. So we do not include the TDS in the value of supply. Apart from that, everywhere else where we discussed, here we will discuss that this is a TDS under GST. We know that TDS under income tax works that you have to make payment to somebody, you will withhold something and make the payment. Similarly, that whatever TDS is being deducted under GST, the other person will get the credit. Okay. How you treat the TDS under income tax, similar treatment will be given here. That the person who is deducting, for him, there is no loss. The person on whose account it is being deducted, there also there is no loss. Okay. So it will come to my account. Ultimately, when you deduct TDS under income tax, you can utilize it while filing your return. That is tax deducted at source. So when you pay that much of TDS, you can reduce. Similarly, under GST also, the tax which is deducted in certain scenarios when you make a supply to the government and the government will deduct TDS, the which who will deduct, when they will deduct, we will learn under this chapter. Okay, so that is the basics of TDS, that somebody is deducting and we are claiming the credit of it. Now, TDS, what is the meaning? It is an Indian withholding tax. That means collecting tax on income, dividends, or asset sales by requiring the payer, that is the person who pays, to deduct the tax due before paying the balance to the payee and the tax to the revenue authorities. So if there is a example of invoice of 1 lakh rupees, now the payment has to be made for 1 lakh rupees. Correct? But will you make the payment of 1 lakh? No, you will not make payment of 1 lakh because government is saying that you have got an invoice. Fine. Now, Abhi, you make the payment to the vendor after deducting a portion called as TDS. तो आप क्या करो? आप एक portion को कम करो. So you have to deduct this portion. The invoice is for 1 lakh. From this, you have to deduct some portion and give it to the government. Will the vendor be quiet? Yes, vendor will be quiet because vendor is aware that that 10,000 what is being deducted is like a working capital block for him, which will get blocked. He will not get the money immediately. He can utilize that towards his income tax return, which he files on an annual basis. The difference between income tax TDS and GST TDS is in income tax, you can claim it at the end of the year. But in case of GST, you can claim the TDS on a monthly basis. वहां पे रिटर्न्स ईयरली वंस है और यहाँ पे रिटर्न्स है मंथली, तो आपको मंथली रिटर्न्स में क्लेम कर सकते हो. एंड इफ यू आर अ क्वार्टरली रिटर्न फाइलर, यू कैन क्लेम इट इन योर क्वार्टरली रिटर्न्स. ओके, this is what is TDS. For people who don't know the TDS completely, that जो हमको डिडक्ट करना है, हम डिडक्ट करके गवर्नमेंट को देंगे, गवर्नमेंट हमें फिर से वो दे देगा. तो फिर डबल सिचुएशन क्यों होगा? बिकॉज ऐसे हो सकता है कि दैट somebody is supplying to me and I do not know whether that other person to whom I'm selling, he will he will file his GST returns or no. So the government wants to have a control from a person who's filing the returns to whom he is filing, okay, to whom he is supplying. That person also should file the returns. So how will that data get? How will he be motivated to file a returns if you deduct some TDS? अगर उसका कुछ TDS डिडक्ट करते हैं तो फिर वो रिटर्न फाइल करेगा क्योंकि उसके उस जो भी TDS डिडक्ट किया है उसका बेनिफिट उसे चाहिए होगा. So that's why he will deduct the TDS. So, sir, what is the difference between IT and GST TDS? IT TDS, Mahi, will be deducted when there is a transaction of a income, of a nature of income tax. But in GST, it is not the same thing which is replicated here. Here, like in income tax, you have 194J on professional services. In GST, that is not that the TDS will be deducted on professional services. In GST, the TDS will be deducted on certain categories, which is different from that categories. Because here that income from profession will not come here. Here what will come is when you make any supply to government, then the government will deduct TDS. When you make any supply through e-commerce, then the e-commerce will deduct. So the basic, the nature of transaction on which TDS has to be deducted will be different in income tax and different in GST. Sir, GSTR 3B file के साथ TDS can be claimed? Yes. Along in the GSTR 3B, you do not have to mention anywhere TDS deducted and things like that. When you make the payment after filing the return, right? Once you are ready with all your numbers, you will have a final table on payment of taxes. That payment has to be made through credit ledger or cash ledger. The TDS and TCS, what is getting deducted, will come to your electronic cash ledger. So from the cash ledger, you can make the payment of your income tax. So the TCS of income tax is equal to TDS, may say it? No. Even in GST, you have TDS and TCS both. Like how you have TDS and TCS in income tax, similarly in GST also you have both TDS and TCS. Okay. Now, once this is done, what are the advantages? Advantages is it gives a regular flow of income to the government so that they don't have to wait for the end of the tax period. उसके पहले ही TDS deduct हो जाता है. So the money comes in advance to the government. It gives majorly a audit trail and hence prevents tax evasion. Like how we have discussed this, that when the government sells to somebody, now government is supplying to somebody, but whether that person is filing GST or no, they don't know. So that's why this deduction will help them to find out, okay, this government has made payment to 10 vendors and 10 TDS has been deducted. Now, when they deduct the TDS, what they have to mention? They have to mention the other persons in income tax. They have to mention other person's PAN number. Correct? They have to file the TDS returns. So here also there is a TDS returns. When they file it, they have to mention the other party's GSTIN number. So once they mention their GSTIN number, it provides a audit trail. Okay, a audit trail is created and hence prevents the tax evasion. So that whether he's filed the returns, if he's filed the returns, might be he's disclosed lower amount. मैंने तो सेल किया उसको 1 लाख का, बट उसने उसने मुझे 1 लाख का सेल किया, मैंने 1 लाख पे टीडीएस डिडक्ट कर दिया, लेकिन वो इनकम बता रहा है सिर्फ 40,000. सो देन देयर इज अ क्रॉस चेक कि आपने जब सेल किया था गवर्नमेंट ने 1 लाख पे टीडीएस डिडक्ट किया और आप सेल बता रहे हो 40,000. सो देयर इज अ लीकेज ऑफ 60,000 that can be traced, right? So that is what is called as audit trail कि मेरा ट्रांजैक्शन और उसके रिटर्न्स का ट्रांजैक्शंस दोनों मैच करके गवर्नमेंट कैन एस्टैब्लिश whether there is any lacuna there. Okay. Third advantage is exam expands the tax net. So once that person has to file the return, then he will have to register. So ऐसे करके the tax net is getting expanded. With integration of data, there exists an audit trail. So all this data will go to the GST portal and it will get integrated and it acts as a audit trail. Sir, income tax, we have to get PAN for filing TDS returns. So, sir, separate registration is GST is not required? No. In GST, separate registration like that is not required. Your GSTI number is sufficient. Where is this in study material? Arre baap re, that's a dangerous question. It is there in a separate chapter, right? Let me see if you go. There is a separate chapter called TDS and TCS. I'll tell you the chapter number. Chapter number 14. Chapter number 14 is completely on this TDS and TCS. प्रेजेंटेशन तो आपको बुक में नहीं मिलेगा कोमल. प्रेजेंटेशन इज व्हाट आई हैव क्रिएटेड. आई विल अपलोड इट एंड यू विल गेट इट, बट द चैप्टर हैज टू बी देयर. Like more almost in IT, we learn 40 sections in TDS. So in GST also this many sections? No, there are no so many sections in luckily in GST because income tax, you know, it has come from 1976, 1961, 1961 till now. So number of TDS deductions have been increased. But GST is very new law compared to income tax. So you will not find so many provisions. Probably over a period of time that will increase. Pallavi's question is where supplier recipient is not registered under GST but required to deduct TDS. So temporary registration is required? No. So government. So let's get to your actual question so that instead of getting into theory, your practical questions are really encouraging to answer. Now, generally TDS is the liability of TDS is on government contractors. Government. So when you supply something to the government, then they have to deduct the TDS. Now, does government have to register under GST? Pallavi, if you can unmute yourself so that we can have a interactive sessions. Okay, so you're all saying yeah, no, they don't have to deduct. So TDS अलग रख देंगे विजय, just उनके supply के लिए. Does government provide any service? Does government provide any supply?
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good afternoon. So tell
Sir,
me. Yes, please.
sir, I'm asking that where supplier or recipient is not registered, like in GST, we have studied that where supplier or recipient, any of them is not registered, then a temporary registration is required.
Correct.
So,
Those are only in limited cases. When you are a casual taxable person, you take a separate registration. And the temporary registration, as you say, it
yes,
is not that temporary registration will given to you and it will get cancelled. Temporary registration number is only given in limited cases. That is when you are transporting goods from one place to another place, and
yes,
the goods have been caught, and
yes.
then you have to pay some taxes in that state. So in that state, if you don't have registration, then a temporary registration is given. Or when the officer feels that your made supplies crossing the threshold limit,
Yes.
then he will give a temporary registration and immediately within 30 days, it has to get converted to permanent registration. Okay.
Okay,
But
okay,
for
sir.
TDS and TCS, there is no concept of temporary registration.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So answer my questions now that generally TDS is deducted by the government. Okay. Now, does the government have to take registration?
No, sir.
Why not?
Because, sir, um, जीएसटी लॉ इज ऑलरेडी आई मीन जीएसटी लॉ तो सर गवर्नमेंट ही बनाती है ना.
तो गवर्नमेंट बनाती है तो
यस,
गवर्नमेंट को कुछ रूल्स अप्लाई नहीं होगा?
होगा लेकिन सर हमने हर जगह यही पढ़ा है कि गवर्नमेंट को तो कुछ नहीं चाहिए. मतलब
नहीं, ऐसा
गवर्नमेंट के
तो कहीं
केस
नहीं है।
में
नहीं,
गवर्नमेंट को भी सर रजिस्ट्रेशन लेना पड़ेगा.
हाँ, व्हाई नॉट? जब आपने रजिस्ट्रेशन चैप्टर पढ़ा था तो वहां पे
हाँ,
कुछ एग्जेम्पशन है सेइंग
रजिस्ट्रेशन.
दैट गवर्नमेंट को रजिस्ट्रेशन लेने की जरूरत नहीं है?
नो सर.
देयर इज नो सच एग्जेम्पशन टू द गवर्नमेंट फॉर रजिस्ट्रेशन. सो सपोज आई से गिव एन एग्जांपल, गवर्नमेंट की एक कंपनी है, ओके, उसमें गवर्नमेंट का शेयर होल्डिंग है कॉल्ड एज ओएनजीसी.
हाँ जी.
ठीक है, तो क्या ओएनजीसी को जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन लेने की जरूरत नहीं है फिर?
लेना पड़ेगा, तो कंपनी है.
कंपनी है लेकिन गवर्नमेंट कंपनी है,
हाँ जी.
तो फिर
अच्छा, गवर्नमेंट के बिहाफ पे, मतलब जैसे अगर गवर्नमेंट ने शेयर लिया हुआ है कंपनी वगैरह का, तो वो कंपनी गवर्नमेंट के बिहाफ पे रजिस्ट्रेशन ले सकती
करेक्ट.
है ना.
तो ओएनजीसी क्या हो गया? एक कंपनी हो गया.
हाँ जी.
करेक्ट. तो कंपनी हो गया और क्या कर रहा है वो मेजर, मेरे को कंपनी या नॉन कंपनी ये डिस्टिंग्विश नहीं करना है मुझे. अपने मूड क्वेश्चन पे आते हैं कि गवर्नमेंट को रजिस्ट्रेशन लेना है या नहीं लेना है.
यस
द
लेना है।
गवर्नमेंट भी लेना पड़ेगा इफ दे आर डूइंग एनी सप्लाई। ठीक है, अगर वो कुछ सप्लाई करते हैं तो उन्हें रजिस्ट्रेशन लेना पड़ेगा। नाउ वो हो गया सेक्शन 7। मैं आपको एक मिनट अपने पीपीटी वो वाला लेके चलता हूं जहां पे हमने ये डिस्कस किया था ऑन सप्लाई। विल गो टू द फर्स्ट चैप्टर ताकि वहां से यहाँ पर आपको कनेक्शन मिल सके।
ओके सर।
Is the presentation visible on section 7? Okay. So section 7 says supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services or both such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, leasing, made or agreed to be made for a consideration by a person in the course or furtherance of business. So when government is also a person, if you see the definition of person, it could be anybody. It is so wide that a government also is included as a person. So once a government is included as a person and they are doing any of these activities, they're doing sale, transfer, barter, exchange, they will become a person who is supplying. And here there is no exclusion. They've just said when any of these activities is made by a person एंड इट इज मेड फॉर अ कंसिडरेशन। जैसे गवर्नमेंट कुछ फ्री दे देती है सो वहां पे कंसिडरेशन नहीं है, वो छोड़ दीजिए। लेकिन जहां पे कंसिडरेशन लेती है गवर्नमेंट, विल दैट बी इंक्लूडेड इन सप्लाई? एटलीस्ट 7(1)(a) पढ़ के आपका क्या कंक्लूजन है? यस, करेक्ट। तो 7(1)(a) में कोई एक्सक्लूजन नहीं है, कोई एग्जेम्पशन नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है। 7(1)(a) ब्लाइंडली पढ़ेंगे तो फिर गवर्नमेंट अगर कुछ सप्लाई करती है फॉर अ कंसिडरेशन तो वो भी सप्लाई है, करेक्ट। फिर 7(1)(a) छोड़ देंगे, वो स्पेसिफिक के लिए। 7(1)(b) इंपोर्ट के लिए, 7(1)(c) अगर नो कंसिडरेशन के लिए। आगे जाते हैं। 7(1)(a) वो क्लासिफिकेशन है, ठीक है। एक बार सप्लाई डिसाइड हो गया तो फिर वो गुड्स है या सर्विस के लिए हम 7(1)(a) शेड्यूल 2 में जाएंगे। अब जाएंगे 7(2). Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1, activities or transactions specified in schedule 3 or such activities or transactions undertaken by the central government, state government, or any local authority in which they are engaged as public authorities, as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council, shall be treated neither as a supply of goods nor supply of services. हमने जब 7 पढ़ा था, 7(1)(a) पे जोर दिया, 7(2) जोर नहीं दिया था, बिकॉज तब उसका रेलेवेंस पता नहीं चलेगा हमको। लेकिन अभी हमको पता चल रहा है कि व्हेन अ गवर्नमेंट डज एक्टिविटीज और ट्रांजैक्शंस, व्हेन फर्स्ट तो शेड्यूल 3 बोल दिया कि शेड्यूल 3 की एक्टिविटीज हटा दीजिए, और एक्टिविटीज और ट्रांजैक्शंस अंडरटेकन बाय द सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट और लोकल अथॉरिटी, जो म्युनिसिपैलिटीज है, in which they are engaged as public authorities, as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council, shall be treated neither as supply of goods nor a supply of services. तो इसीलिए शेड्यूल 3 के आइटम्स में जो भी है उसको आप ना तो सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स बोलेंगे ना तो सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस। सिमिलरली गवर्नमेंट के सर्विसेज जो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट, लोकल अथॉरिटी करती है, इन विच दे आर एंगेज्ड एज व्हाट, दे आर एंगेज्ड एज पब्लिक अथॉरिटीज, और उसे नोटिफाई करना चाहिए कि ये एक्टिविटीज है जो फिर जो गवर्नमेंट की सर्विसेज हैं उसके ऊपर टैक्स नहीं लगेगा। उसे आप सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स भी नहीं मानोगे, सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस भी नहीं मानोगे। तो सप्लाई 7(1) का कंडीशन क्या है कि उसे या तो फिर सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स मानना चाहिए या फिर सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज। और 7(2) बोल देता है हटाओ इन सबको, मैं जो बोलता हूँ वही अल्टीमेट है। 7 जो शेड्यूल 3 में आती है और गवर्नमेंट के सर्विसेज जो कि नोटिफाई है, वो ना तो सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स है ना तो सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज। इसका मतलब उसके ऊपर टैक्स नहीं लगेगा। अगर टैक्स नहीं लगेगा तो उनको रजिस्ट्रेशन की जरूरत नहीं है। So what is this activities notified? Activities covered under Article 243G and Article 243W of the Constitution of India. Or 243 or 240, 243G and 243 W क्या बोलता है? All those activities which the government has to do in the nature of panchayat, municipality, वो सभी जो काम है wherein it is doing for the welfare are in its role as development of the respective areas, उनका कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल पावर 243G एंड 243W में कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया डिसाइड करती है। उसमें दिया गया है कि दे हैव टू डू सच एक्टिविटीज एज मे बी स्पेसिफाइड, तो उनके लिए शेड्यूल है, दे मे हैव टू डू सच एक्टिविटीज व्हाट इज स्पेसिफाइड इन द शेड्यूल। वंस दैट इज क्लियर, तो फिर हमको क्या समझना चाहिए दैट गवर्नमेंट अगर कुछ गवर्नमेंटल एक्टिविटीज करती है इन विच दे आर एंगेज्ड एज पब्लिक अथॉरिटीज, तो फिर उसके ऊपर टैक्स नहीं लगेगा, तब रजिस्ट्रेशन की जरूरत नहीं है। दैट इज वन पार्ट। This is the basic part. 7.2 says when they are engaged as public authorities and is notified on that GST is not payable. Now come to the next part, that government is not engaged as public authorities. Government is engaged as non-public authorities. Example, typical example, government की buildings होती है, buildings के ऊपर commercial shops करते हैं and they give it for rent. So is it a public authority function there? No. तो फिर in that case they have to charge GST. At least it's a supply. Charge will come to the later on. Then it will fall under the definition of section 7. Because 7 charging के लिए हमको क्या देखना पड़ेगा? Section 9. That will go separately. But section 7 में supply cover हो जाता है क्या? It falls under supply. So everybody is in agreement that yes, it will fall under the definition of supply. Once it falls under the definition of supply, then comes the charge. और most of the government services हमने देखा है कि it will come under reverse charge. रिवर्स चार्ज का हम सबने नोटिफिकेशन पढ़ा था, रिवर्स चार्ज ऑन सर्विसेज, इट विल ऑल बी लायबल टू रिवर्स चार्ज। तो फिर गवर्नमेंट को वहां पे भी रजिस्ट्रेशन की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। एंड फ्यू अदर सर्विसेज अपने एग्जेम्पशन में हमने पढ़ा है दैट फ्यू गवर्नमेंट सर्विसेज, जब व्हेन गवर्नमेंट वन सप्लाइंग फ्रॉम वन गवर्नमेंट टू अनदर गवर्नमेंट, then there is no requirement of any GST. So first is it's a supply. Second is uh, the exemption under, not even exemption, the exclusion from the definition of supply comes from 7.2 when they say that when the government is engaged as public authorities. Then comes reverse charge, that even if something which is not as a public authorities, the recipient of services from the government, he'll pay reverse charge. Third is there are some exemptions. तो फिर गवर्नमेंट का सर्विसेज या रजिस्ट्रेशन लेने की गुंजाइश बहुत कम रहेगी because of these three reasons, that one, it is covered under 7.2, second is it will be covered under RCM, and third that it will be covered under exemption. So there will be, now coming back to my example, when the rental is provided by the government, they're providing rental of the buildings and it's collecting rent on that, should the government take the registration or no? It's not residential, because residential पे तो exemption है ही है, कमर्शियल रेंटल के बारे में बोल रहा हूँ। No registration required because yes, RCM will be there. Correct. In case of renting of properties to a person who is a business person, who is carrying on business and is crossing the threshold limit, then the other person will have to pay GST under reverse charge, right? So it will fall under reverse charge. तो वहां पे भी गवर्नमेंट को registration लेने की जरूरत नहीं है. So ultimately, when will the government take registration? When they are engaged other than public authorities, like ONGC. When I'm saying it is doing oil extraction, that is not as a public authority, it is doing as a government entity. Okay, so when I said that government is holding certain number of shares, it is only holding a certain number of shares, but it is not a full complete public authority. So that's the reason ONGC will not fall under this activities. They will have to take registration and they will have to charge GST. So that becomes a public limited company. But apart from that, road development, water development, infrastructure development, this is not given to any company. This government themselves have the ability to give contracts. So when you are supplying something to the government, जैसे government को road लेना है, National Highway Authority of India. It's not a company, it's a authority. Now, when NHAI has the role of constructing roads, it will do the construction of roads not directly. It will engage few contractors, saying that okay, I will apply for a select a tender. You apply. Whoever applies the best rate, they will give tender to him. Now, what is happening? Their activity, they are giving it to the person. Now, when this person or the contractor who is got the tender, he will do the construction of the road and he is supplying the service to the government. Now, on this, government is not registered. So here what will happen? Government will have to take a registration for the purpose of TDS. Now, NHAI is not providing any services. It is getting services from the these tenders, these people who are doing the contract work. Now, when these contractors are supplying to the government, NHAI has to make the payment. That time, instead of paying 100%, it will deduct TDS at a respective person and make the balance to him. So that is how this provisions of TDS along with section 7 of supply will work out. Clear? Okay. So there's a question here saying that MTNL issues tenders to contractors to install network towers. Yes, those are also things. But MTNL is not providing services as a public authorities. So that will not get covered here. But in exemption chapter, it is specifically written that 25% of the goods and 75% of the services will be exempt if it exceeds the limit of goods. Then it will be required to get registration. So that is when you supply, Hardik, when you make a supply to the government. So read that exemption again that when you make any supply to the government, then you will get an exemption if it is a pure labor service. That is, the value of the services is more than 75%. In case of pure labor services, when you as a contractor are providing, but there can be other services where you are providing primarily goods. So there that exemption will not come in between. That will not help you. Correct? So in such situations, you will have to charge the government and government will deduct the TDS and make you the payment. Okay, so we went to the question of registration and whether the TDS has to get registered separately. The answer is yes. When the government is not registered, then they have to take a separate registration. But if they have already registration, still for the purpose of TDS, there will be a separate registration. But unlike like you have a PAN number and TAN number under income tax, such number is not required here. Okay. TDS under GST is deducted under section 51. So primarily we know that TDS and TCS. Now let us see what is the difference between TDS and TCS. TDS is specifically under section 51. TCS is under section 52. Very easy to understand. 51, 52, 51 TDS, 52 TCS. It is TDS refers to tax deducted when recipient of goods make payment to the supplier. When you are supplying to of goods or services to somebody, then they will deduct the TDS. This TDS, whatever is deducted, will appear in your ECL. What is ECL? Electronic cash ledger. And when we say ECRL, electronic credit ledger. Correct. So ECL is electronic cash ledger and ECRL is electronic credit ledger. Okay. So TDS, what is being deducted when recipient of goods makes payments to the supplier, that will appear in this electronic cash ledger. Now, TDS is when you make any supply of goods or services, but TCS, which is tax collected at source, refers to tax which is collected by e-commerce operator. So TDS is on supply of goods or services. TCS is on supply to a e-commerce operator. When you're supplying to an e-commerce operator, he will collect a tax. So TCS refers to a tax which is collected by e-commerce operator when a supplier supplies goods or service through its portal. Which portal? Not GST portal, through the e-commerce portal. When you're supplying through a e-commerce portal, then that e-commerce person will collect extra tax and pay to the government. That is called as TCS, tax collected at source. And this TCS is also reflected in the electronic cash ledger of the supplier itself. Okay. Now, that is a basic difference. TDS is on supply of goods or services. TCS is for the e-commerce operator. And both of them, similarity is it will both go and sit in your electronic cash ledger. No, Nayan, this has not come first time in the GST. It had come even in the previous two batches. Who is liable to deduct TDS? TDS is to be deducted by a department or an establishment of the central government or the state government. So when you make any supply to a private party, in income tax, we have that whenever you are having a turnover below the above the threshold limit, even if you're a proprietor, you have to deduct. But in this case, nothing like that sort. That when who has to deduct TDS? Any department or an establishment of the central government or state government. Okay. And local authority and any government agencies or any other person which may be notified by the government. So only this three is what is relevant now because nothing has been notified by the government yet other than these three people. So who is to get registered? Department or an establishment of the central government or state government, a local authority, a governmental agency. These are the three people when you're supplying something to them, they have to deduct TDS. Deductors notified by the government, following are the persons notified, and authority or a board or any other body set up by an act of parliament or state legislature or established by any government. So apart from the three, the government agencies and what we have discussed here, department or establishment of the central government, local authority, government agencies, this has also been notified. That who is that person who is notified? An authority or a board where it's just set up by an act of the parliament and which is establishment by any government and in which 51% or more either equity or control, because some government societies are being formed which is not issuing equity. Okay, only a company will be issuing equity, but a board can be set up as a trust. A board can be set up as a society. In such cases, they will not be having equity. They will only be having control of somebody. So in such cases where government is exercising control, then it becomes a authority or a board. So that will also be persons who are notified for deduction of tax. Then a society registered, see, even society is covered. Society established by the central government or state government or local authority under the Societies Registration Act. But not every society, only that society which is established by the central government or the state government and any public sector undertakings. So, is if that three plus these three notified people are making any payment, then they will have to deduct the TDS. Following a person is not liable to TDS when goods are supplied from a public sector undertaking to another public sector undertaking. Like somebody was giving example of LIC, ONGC, MTNL. These are all what public sector undertakings. When this public sector undertakings gets any services from the public, then it will deduct TDS. But if it's getting services from another PSU, then from one PSU to another PSU, there is no requirement of deducting of TDS. Second, when supply of goods or services takes place between one person to another person specified in clause A, B, C, D of 51(1). That is apart from one government to another. If there's any cross transactions between one government entity to another local authority or local authority to government, any kind of cross exchange of services within these four categories, then also GST, TDS is not required. Okay. Now, who on what supply should I deduct TDS? See, I've got a contract of say 1 lakh rupees. Should I deduct TDS? So all small amount should I deduct TDS? They said no. The deductees, that is, who will get deducted on what transaction you have to deduct TDS government when the deductees, that is the suppliers who are supplying it to you, the total value of supply of taxable goods or services under a contract exceeds 2,50,000 rupees. So the minimum limit is when your contract value is 2,50,000 rupees and above, then you are liable to be deducted TDS under section 51(1)(a). The value is exclusive of tax and cess. Very important. It is per contract or financial, it is per contract, not financial year. The deductees are the supplier whose value of supply, the value of supply should exclude the tax and cess value. Value of supply of taxable goods under a contract exceeds 2,50,000 are liable to deduct. And the deduction, say if is charged 3 lakh rupees plus GST, you will deduct TDS only on the 3 lakh rupees. You have to deduct TDS on the value of supply. Supplier is always government, not the supplier, ma. Tambeshwari, supplier is public, general, private person, and receiver is government, not the supplier. Because government अगर supply करता है तो deduct कौन करेगा? When you are supplying it to the government, then you have to deduct TDS. See, under a contract, it is not easy to break up like how we are saying, right? When it's a government contract, they will not look at the TDS aspects and agree that, okay, we'll break the contract. Under private transactions, that can happen. But under government transactions, government also has an audit wing called Comptroller and Auditor General of India. So they also have a special audit wing. If they break the contract, they will be under trouble. So it is not easy to break the contract with the government or split the contracts when you make any supply to the government. Now the rate of deduction, what is the rate of TDS? The tax would be deducted at 1% under CGST Act of the payment made to the supplier. That is under CGST Act 1%, under SGST Act 1%. Therefore, the effective TDS rate is 2%. And in case of interstate transaction, this is intrastate within the state, 1% CGST, 1% SGST. And if it is interstate transaction, then 2%. No TDS. Specifically, we have discussed when TDS is there. Now we'll discuss when TDS is not required. This is very catchy and interesting for our calculations, where the location of supplier and place of supply are in both the same state, but the place of recipient of supply is in another state. Then no TDS will be deducted. How do you analyze this? We know that. How do you determine whether a transaction is liable to interstate or intrastate? When do you, it is interstate? Okay, when do you say it is an interstate transaction? Hardik, your answer is wrong. Where the location of supplier outstate, interstate. So how do you decide outstate? When we supply goods, then the end place where we supply, no. Place of supply is in one state and place of recipient is in different state, no. Stock transfer, no. Dilip, the silent person, has given a correct answer. Well, the location of supplier and place of supply, these are the important terms. We have discussed this so many times. When the location of supplier and not the location of recipient, when the location of supplier and place of supply are in the same state, then it is an intrastate supply. When the location of supplier and place of supply are in different state, then it is an interstate transaction. Come on, you guys are forgetting things. Your basics, what we have taught, has to continue till the end. Not only in this session, it will continue even in your finals, because these basics will help you build up in your finals also. You have GST in final as well, more advanced. So this basics will not be repeated. So correct answer there. When the location of supplier and place of supply are in the same state, then it is an intrastate supply. When the location of supplier and place of supply, that's why we have such a detailed place of supply rules, right? The location of supplier and place of supply are in two different states, then it is an interstate supply. Clear? So that is to decide whether you have to charge CGST, SGST or IGST. Now, in case of TDS, it is slightly different. The reason why I've brought it that what is CGST, SGST, because if you get confused with that and this year, then this logic, if you apply there, then there'll be a blunder. In case of TDS, the logic is where the location of supplier and place of supply are in same state. Okay, it is an intrastate supply, fine, where the location of supplier and place of supply are in same state, but the place of the recipient is in another state. Then no TDS is deducted. So for the purpose of deducting TDS, okay, you have to see all the three things. Where is the location of supplier? Where is the place of supply? And the place of the recipient. Where the location of supplier, I will give you an example, but you have to respond back here. If you do not respond, then it will not be helpful. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. That was sir.
Good afternoon. Location of supplier is Karnataka. Place of supply is Maharashtra. Is TDS applicable or
No, sir.
No, sir. Since it's interstate supply, TDS is not applicable.
okay?
No, sir. Not apply the TDS
Okay.
because, sir, place of supply and location of supply are different.
Okay.
Sir, recipient location is not there.
Okay. Correct. So you cannot decide whether TDS is applicable or no by only these two facts. The provision I've already given here where the location of supplier or place of supply are in same state, but place of recipient is in another state. So place of the recipient is important. Without place of recipient, you cannot answer your question. Now, in this case, you tell me whether I've given the additional missing fact, which was missing in first part, place of recipient also is in Karnataka. Then is TDS applicable or no?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Why so?
Sir, location of supply and place of recipient, both are different.
Okay. Location of supplier and
No, sir.
place of supply.
Place of supply and place of recipient are different.
Mhm.
Sir, location of supplier and place of supplies are different, so it is not applied the TDS, and recipient is not important in that case. But sir, it is same state is the location and place of supply when it is important to recipient.
Correct. Correct. Here the supply is interstate because the location of supplier and place of supplier in different states, so there will not be any TDS deducted. So first criteria we have to see is whether the location of supplier and place of supply are in the same state, and when the recipient is in the same state, then TDS will get deducted, otherwise it will not get deducted. Now, where can there be instances that location of supplier and place of supply are in same state, but the location of recipient is in another state? Can there be any such cases?
Sir, bill to supply
Bill to ship to model.
model.
Okay. Now, in this instance, if the location of supplier and place of supply are in different state, then we will still deduct the TDS. In that case, we will deduct IGST.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So apart from, so location of supplier and place of supply are in same state, then we will deduct CGST and SGST TDS. And if location of supplier and place of supply are in different state, then we will deduct IGST. Okay. So yes, Komal, you had something.
तो पूरा कंफ्यूज हो रहा है सर.
ठीक है, मैं एक एग्जाम्पल लेके बताता हूँ. सो ये आप छोड़ दीजिए. स्टार्ट हो योर. लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर. फर्स्ट ये 3 टर्म्स आपको समझ में आ गए. लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर, प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई और प्लेस ऑफ रिसिपिएंट.
यस सर.
ठीक है, तीनों अलग अलग है. अगर लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर और लोकेशन ऑफ रिसिपिएंट, ठीक है, अगर एक ही स्टेट में है, इस केस में लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर कर्नाटका है, लोकेशन ऑफ रिसिपिएंट कर्नाटका में है, दोनों सेम स्टेट में है,
यस सर.
तो फिर टीडीएस विल बी एप्लीकेबल. ओके.
ओके सर.
सेकेंड सिनारियो बोलता हूँ, फिर मैं आपको प्रैक्टिकल एग्जांपल भी दूंगा. वेयर द लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर इज इन कर्नाटका, प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई इज ऑल्सो इन कर्नाटका, ठीक है, लेकिन प्लेस ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट इज तमिलनाडु. तो इस केस में टीडीएस एप्लीकेबल है या नहीं है? What is the criteria I told in the first point? The location of supplier and recipient should be in the same state. Place
No,
of
it is
supply
not
is actually not applicable. Why?
because location of supplier and place of recipient is in different state.
Correct. तो इसके लिए where the location of supplier and place of recipient is in different state, then TDS will not be applicable.
Yes sir.
Okay. Now, how do you understand that it is not applicable? Can this be practically possible? Yes. The example for this is when a government is giving contract to a person saying do advertisement for this advertisement company is in Tamil Nadu and they are engaging a Tamil Nadu person to do advertisement for the Karnataka government, and they will do the advertisement in Karnataka itself. Okay. So when this government is giving contract to a advertisement company who is in Tamil Nadu and the advertisement they are doing in Karnataka, what will be the place of supply?
Karnataka.
Karnataka, because we have understood section 13 step by step. We have learned where the advertisement is performed, that will be the place of supply. So in
Yes,
this
sir.
scenario, the location of supplier is Karnataka, location of supply is in place of supply is in Karnataka. Okay, or other way around also, where the location of supplier is in Karnataka. In this case, location of supplier is Tamil Nadu, because advertisement company is the supplier, and the place of recipient, that is Karnataka government. Okay, that is the recipient's place. So Tamil Nadu and Karnataka both are in different state for the supplier and recipient. So they will not deduct TDS in this case.
Okay sir.
In this scenario, where the location of supplier is in Karnataka, the place of supply is Maharashtra. Karnataka government ने कहा मेरा advertisement you do it in the state of Maharashtra. Place of supply will be Maharashtra. लेकिन advertisement company is from Karnataka. ठीक है?
Yes sir.
So if it is in the same state, I can deduct TDS where I am also in Karnataka and the recipient also is in Karnataka, then I can deduct TDS. If I am in one state and the recipient is in another state, then TDS will not apply.
Okay sir. Now clear sir.
Very good. Anybody else having any doubts here?
नहीं तो ये वाला ये प्रिंट स्टैक ट्रेस हटा के और ये गेट मैसेज हटा के प्लस ई कॉमा ये रखना पड़ेगा
No, then not always CGST and SGST. IGST also will come in. Like in this scenario, where the location of supplier is Tamil Nadu, Hardik, place of supply is Karnataka. So what will he charge? He will charge IGST, करेक्ट? तो जब वो IGST चार्ज कर रहा है तो फिर हो गया ना, दैट्स an example of that person charging IGST then. So TDS CGST SG का भी हो सकता है और IGST का भी हो सकता है, where the location of supplier and place of supply are in different state. TDS not dependent on PS. TDS is still dependent on PC or place of supply 9, because to decide whether CGST, SGST, TDS you deduct or IGST, TDS, for that purpose, place of supply still becomes relevant. We have to see location of supplier and place of supplier, Pallavi. Two, if both are same, then we will deduct CGST, SGST, TDS. If it is different state, we will deduct IGST, TDS. Yes, any practical examples? Yes. This basics, if you have understood, then I can proceed further. Correct. In first case, location of supplier and place of supply are in different state. So वहां पर भी कसक in location of supply and place of supply are in different state. IGST लगेगा. And second में भी IGST लगेगा. अगर सिनारियो थर्ड में लेके चलता हूं, location of supplier is in Karnataka. से तमिलनाडु छोड़ दीजिए. Location of supplier also is in Karnataka. Place of supply also is in Karnataka, and place of recipient also is in Karnataka. Then is TDS applicable? Yes. अभी हम पूछ सकते हैं कि कौन सा वाला TDS applicable होगा. In second case तो TDS applicable ही नहीं है. In first case TDS is applicable. Which TDS will apply in first case? CGST, SGST, correct? So CGST प्लस SGST वो वाला TDS डिडक्ट करना पड़ेगा. सेकेंड केस में TDS अप्लीकेबल ही नहीं है, तो फिर CGST या SGST डिस्कशन करने का पॉइंट ही नहीं है. थर्ड केस, no, in first case not CGST. Location of supplier and place of supplier in different state, बाबा. IGST TDS लगेगा ना. Not, don't again go with the location of supplier and recipient. For the purpose of deciding TDS, you have to see first is applicability. First case में applicable हो गया, then what kind of TDS के लिए you will see where is the location of supplier and place of supply. And third case, correct Ambeshwari, it will be CGST plus SGST. क्लियर है यहां तक? ओके, विल टेक सम सिनारियोस जो मैंने 2-3 केसेस लिखे हैं. आफ्टर दैट विल कम बैक टू दिस. TDS to be director or no, you decide. Location of supplier, place of supply and recipient are in the same state. इसमें आपको क्लैरिटी मिल जाएगा. Yes, TDS is to be directed. कौन सा TDS? CGST and SGST TDS. Correct. सब लोग स्मार्ट हो गए अभी. TDS is deducted as CGST and SGST. Correct. Second scenario, location of supplier and place of supply are in different state. And of course, recipient is in the same state. वो लिखा नहीं है, but वो समझ लीजिए that recipient is in the same state as the location of supplier. TDS applicable. कौन सा वाला TDS? IGST वाला TDS. Very nice. तो वहां पे TDS is deducted as IGST. Third scenario, location of supplier and place of supply are in the same state, but the recipient is in a different state. Not applicable. Correct. Very true. तो आप समझ गए हो अभी. इसी को अलग अलग सिचुएशंस में अलग अलग नंबर्स के साथ दिए जाएंगे, उसे आपको बताना है. इसमें ठीक है, मैं स्लाइड चेंज करता हूँ. नेक्स्ट वाला विल टेक दैट अप आफ्टर द ब्रेक, वरना फिर उसमें आंसर्स ऑलरेडी अपलोड हो गए तो फिर वो मजा नहीं आएगा. ठीक है, विल टेक अ ब्रेक ऑफ 10 मिनट्स. अभी लगभग 3:40 हुआ है. बाई 3:50 विल कम बैक. Okay, and we'll discuss on this TDS deduction, then go to TCS as well. Yes, there is, for that there's one query. The supplier location and place of supply is in the one state and recipient location in another state, no TDS applicable. But sir, if TDS suppliers in one state, say example Karnataka, and place of supply and recipient location is in Tamil Nadu, TDS applicable will be IGST or is it the same there? See, where the supply happens, what nature of supply, that will decide the TDS. So in your first example, you're saying where the supplier location and place of supply are in the same state and recipient is in another state, no TDS, correct. But if the supplier is in one state and say in Karnataka, place of supply and place of recipient is in Tamil Nadu. Okay. If the place of recipient is also in Tamil Nadu, then TDS will not apply. Okay. Because the location of supplier and recipient should be in the same state. Since both of them are not in the same state, GST TDS will not apply. Sir, is it for applicability of TDS, location of supply and location of recipient? Yes, only purpose of TDS, not for the purpose of chargeability. The left chargeability will be location of supplier and place of supply. Don't get confused with that. Okay. So I think my next slide will probably solve this query. I want everybody's participation, whether TDS is to be deducted or not in these scenarios. Okay, who are saying no, fine. But who are saying yes, tell what TDS has to be deducted. Right. Everybody is understood. We have to deduct TDS at 1% each of CGST and SGST. Correct. IGST TDS. Why IGST TDS? or second case. Okay. Second case where the first of all, what is the nature of GST you would charge? IGST only. Correct. Yes. Perfect. Second case, yes, IGST TDS applicable at 2%. What is the nature of supply in third case? What is the nature of GST? When the supplier is supplying to a recipient in Bihar, he will charge GST, no? That nature of GST will be what? CGST, SGST or IGST? Bhumika Agarwal, can you unmute yourself? Why are you saying GST is applicable?
Because sir वो location of supplier and place of supplier एक ही state के है ना इसलिए
अच्छा, लेकिन प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई कोलकाता में एक ही स्टेट में होने से टीडीएस अप्लीकेबल हो जाएगा क्या? टीडीएस अप्लीकेबल के लिए हमने पिछले साइड में भी देखा था ना कि लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर और प्लेस ऑफ रिसिपिएंट ये दोनों सेम स्टेट में रहना चाहिए।
Yes, sir.
जैसे फर्स्ट एग्जांपल में तो दोनों सेम थे इसलिए जीएसटी अप्लीकेबल हो गया। आपके लॉजिक के हिसाब से लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर और प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई अगर सेम स्टेट में है तब टीडीएस डिडक्ट करेंगे, लेकिन सेकेंड सिनारियो में तो अलग अलग है, तब वहां पे भी आपने यस बोला था या नो?
No बोला था सर।
लेकिन आंसर तो यस है ना, क्योंकि आपको प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई टीडीएस के लिए नहीं देखना है, आपको टीडीएस के लिए लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर और प्लेस ऑफ रिसिपिएंट ये दो चीजें देखनी है।
Okay.
आप ये लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर और प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई देखेंगे कि कौन सा जीएसटी चार्ज करना है। इस केस में कोलकाता और कोलकाता है तो आप जीएसटी कौन सा चार्ज करेंगे? सीजीएसटी और एसजीएसटी। तो आप सीजीएसटी और एसजीएसटी चार्ज करोगे, लेकिन टीडीएस रिसिपिएंट कुछ डिडक्ट नहीं करेगा, क्योंकि लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लाई और रिसिपिएंट प्लेस ऑफ रिसिपिएंट अलग अलग है, तो फिर टीडीएस डिडक्ट नहीं होगा, लेकिन जीएसटी तो चार्ज करेगा सामने वाला। ठीक है।
Okay, sir.
So the criteria for deciding place of supply, nature of GST is location of supplier and place of supply. लेकिन TDS के लिए location of supplier and place of recipient ये देखना पड़ेगा। Clear? Okay. So now let's proceed further कि इसमें सब कुछ हमने सीख लिया है। What is the procedure? जो क्या procedure है TDS deduct करने के बाद? The government are the persons, since we are saying government because government agencies, government authority, those are the four people who have to deduct TDS. Once they deduct the TDS, they have to remit it to the government, to the GST authorities basically by the 10th, because the deduct करने वाला भी government है, वो बोलेगा वो दोनों एक ही adjustment करो, नहीं, उसने जो भी withhold किया है अपने उसके payments से, from that payment he has to remit it to the government by the 10th of the subsequent month. अगर जो भी supply अभी है, for that he will have to deduct the TDS, and that TDS amount he has to deposit into the GST portal by the 10th, and he has to issue a TDS certificate in form GSTR 7A. That is the relevant form, GSTR 7A, which he will have to give to the recipient. It will all be online itself. If not deducted on time, then he will be liable to pay interest. So he has to be very careful that he has to deduct and remitted by the 10th of the subsequent month, and he has to file a return called GSTR. Certificate has to be issued in GSTR 7A. This amount of TDS, what is deducted, will appear in the electronic cash ledger of the supplier, and registration. A person is required to deduct TDS shall submit an application on common portal. So he has to take a separate TDS registration. That was all on TDS. Current audio and voice is lagging. I don't feel so. Nobody else is complaining. Can you please check your network, please? It's perfect. Okay. Current, please check your network since others are confirming that it's fine with them. Perfect. So my voice is clear, like how the concept for you is also clear, right? How clear your concepts are. Similarly, my voice also will be clear. So TDS we have completed. Now we'll move to TCS. TCS is very small. We will understand it very easily. What is TCS? First, we have to understand what is the electronic commerce. We have already discussed this, but yes, concepts also is clear. Very nice. What is the e-commerce? E-commerce operator is means A person who is supplying of goods or supply of services or supplier of goods or services, including digital products over digital network and electronic network. Electronic commerce, then electronic commerce operator. So what is electronic commerce? Electronic commerce means any supply of goods or services or both through digital network or electronic network. Okay, that is a simple example of electronic commerce. Now, electronic commerce operator. Who is the e-commerce operator? E-commerce operator means any person who owns, operates, or manages the digital or electronic facility or platform for e-commerce. Okay. Electronic commerce operator is not that I have my company. I open my website and sell the goods. So that is not an e-commerce operator because I am not doing any services for a third party. When I am doing services for myself, I have a brand of shirt I'm selling through my own website. That is not called as an e-commerce operator. When a e-commerce operator does this operation on behalf of somebody else, then he is called an e-commerce operator. Your own product you're selling on your website, that is one of the modes of selling. That's all. Like Amazon and Flipkart, correct. They are all examples of an e-commerce operator. All the website which allows the individual to sell their products online, yes, they are all called as e-commerce operators. Now, this e-commerce operator will have what? He will own, operate, and manage the digital facility. He will not manage the goods. In your own website, you are managing the website, you are managing the goods as well. But in case of a typical e-commerce operator, he will only manage the digital or electronic facility for this e-commerce transaction. What are the types of supply liable to TCS? Supply of goods through e-commerce. Now, when we supply any goods through e-commerce, not everything will be under TCS. Something will be under TCS, something will be such cases where the e-commerce operator itself will pay the GST. Okay, so let's understand this. Types of supply, supply of goods through e-commerce in both the scenarios. Some scenarios are liable to TCS, wherein if I'm supplying it through a e-commerce operator, then it is liable to TCS. And supply of services through e-commerce, which are notified services, there e-commerce operator has to pay the GST under reverse charge, right? Like how we understood section 9(4) concept of reverse charge, that the supplier will not pay, the recipient will pay. Similar to that, there are certain transactions where neither the supplier will pay, neither the recipient will pay. The e-commerce will pay to the government. He will collect it from the customer, that's fine. But the ultimate liability will be of the e-commerce operator. That is one kind of services. They are called as notified services under section 9(5). Apart from 9(5), there are other services which are not notified. They are all liable to TCS. Okay. Now, so first let us understand what are these operators on which the TDS has to be paid by the e-commerce operator. Services by way of transportation of passengers by radio taxi, motor cab, maxi cab, motor cycle, omnibus, or any other motor vehicle. Transportation of passengers, right? We have taken examples of various e-commerce. Now we'll take another examples to understand this example, wherein on these transactions, neither the supplier will pay, neither the recipient will pay. Radio taxi, motor cab, maxi cab, motorcycle, which is all supplied through an e-commerce, because normally when you are supplying any goods through a radio taxi not using e-commerce, then no question of this coming. This 4 points are specifically when you are supplying it through an e-commerce operator. First case, when you're using a radio taxi motor cab, मतलब कौन सा service है वो? When you're using an Uber or Ola, right? And the cab fellow, he is the supplier, you are the recipient. General scenario, who has to pay the tax? The supplier, cab operator. But the government knows that the cab operators will not pay. And we have an organized system called cab aggregators. So these Ola, Uber, Rapido, whoever are these cab aggregators, they will pay the tax on behalf of the supplier. So if you download your bill from the Uber, one is what you get, and once you have to log in and download the invoice, there you will see that tax is paid by the Uber, and they will say it is paid on behalf of the supplier because the liability is on the e-commerce operator. So that is first part where the TCS will not apply. Okay. Yes, there is a update here which Hardik has rightly brought down. This omnibus is only in case when it's a non-company. If it is a company, then they themselves have to pay, not the e-commerce operator. That we'll see in the statutory updates. So, service by way of transportation of passenger by radio taxi, motor cab, motorcycle, whatever you're using through e-commerce operator, tax will be paid by the e-commerce operator themselves. Second, services by way of providing accommodation in hotels, in guest house, clubs, campsites, or other commercial places meant for residential or lodging purposes, except when the person supplying such service through e-commerce is liable for registration. इसका क्या example हो सकता है? Make My Trip, Airbnb. These are the aggregators for hotels, inns, and guest house where the hotel person is below the registration threshold limit. तो फिर उसका जीएसटी कोई नहीं भरेगा. दैट्स व्हाई मेक माई ट्रिप को बोल दिया आप सप्लाई कर रहे हो ऑफ अ होटल, यू पे जीएसटी ऑन इट. ठीक है. सो होटल्स, इन्स, क्लब्स या वॉट एवर प्लेसेस जो एग्रीगेटर इन्वॉल्व है, मेक माई ट्रिप है, housing.com है, वेरियस अदर थिंग्स आर देयर, holiday.in, ऐसे बहुत सारे वेबसाइट्स है हु विल accommodate or be the aggregator for this hotel accommodation. उसके ऊपर पेमेंट किसको करना पड़ेगा? दैट ई कॉमर्स कंपनी इटसेल्फ. लेकिन इफ द पर्सन इज रजिस्टर्ड तो गो IBO, राइट? इफ द पर्सन इज रजिस्टर्ड देन ही हिमसेल्फ विल पे इट. Then services by way of housekeeping such as plumbing, carpentering, etc. Except when the person supplying such service through e-commerce operator is liable for registration. जो आप इसमें कौन सा एग्जांपल सोच सकते हो थर्ड केस में? Just Dial, I wouldn't say is part of it because Just Dial only connecting. They are not an e-commerce operator who is facilitating it. They're only identifying. They're not facilitating. A person of e-commerce will be who is facilitating end to end. He will take the responsibility, saying that okay, this is completed. If any complaints is there, you give it to him, and payment also goes to him. Main important part is payment. In case of Uber and Ola, you're making payment to Uber. They are making to the customer. Right? So in this third scenario, Urban Clamp, Local Ramo, various companies who provide this plumbing, carpentering, etc. Any housekeeping services, cleaning services, when they are supplying urban company, correct? That's a classical example that when the plumber comes to your house, he will not pay GST. So GST will be paid by the urban company. Clear? So in all these scenarios, what we are saying, TCS is not applicable because TCS will apply apart from these services. In this case में तो e-commerce company tax pay कर रहा है तो फिर TCS collect करने की कुछ जरूरत ही नहीं होगी. The main intention is government has to collect the taxes either from the e-commerce operator or from the supplier. In these cases, the e-commerce operator is already paying taxes, so they don't have to deduct the TCS in this case. ठीक है. So third scenario is in case of a urban company. First scenario is Uber and Ola. The second case is in case of Make My Trip. Third case is in case of urban company. And fourth case is in terms of Swiggy and Zomato. Okay. So supply of restaurant services other than the services supplied by restaurant eating joints located at specified premises. Packers and movers, not exactly because that is not housekeeping services. Housekeeping generally refers to cleaning services and things like that. And packers and movers will not fall under it. In fourth scenario, in Swiggy and Zomato, when you order food, earlier restaurants used to pay the taxes. Now it is highlighted in black because when the restaurant, even if they are registered, the taxes will be paid by this e-commerce operator itself. So supply of restaurant services other than service supplied by a restaurant, eating joint at location at specified premises. We will understand this, what is specified premises. But other than this specified premises, that is any restaurant who is having 7,500 and above tariff, for them, they themselves have to pay it. Below 7,500, अगर कुछ room है, if it is pure restaurant, no worries, it will always be e-commerce operator. लेकिन restaurant के साथ अगर stay का भी facilities है और वो stay का tariff कितना है, if it is more than 7,500, मतलब वो high upper hand का restaurant है, then the GST on that will be paid by that restaurant itself. But if it is less than 7,500, then it has to be paid by the Swiggy or Zomato themselves. Okay. Clear with this fourth part? So in all these scenarios, TCS is not applicable. Okay, so what are the major types of e-commerce? Selling own products through their own website. This is what we had discussed. When you are supplying goods of your own product through your own website, then TCS provisions will not be applicable. When you sell bought out products through your own website under own billing, okay, you buy it and you sell it still through your own billing and with your own website, again, TCS provisions are not applicable. Mere facilitating the transaction between the consumer and supplier. Your operator do not own goods. The billing is happening directly by the seller to the customer, and consideration is collected by the operator and paid to the supplier. This is what, in a nutshell, we can say what we have discussed in terms of TCS, that the person is only holding and controlling the supply, and he is not the person who is holding the goods. In this case, TCS provisions will be applicable. Operator will deduct TCS while making payment to other suppliers. Okay, the e-commerce operator will deduct TCS while making payments to other suppliers. Wherever TCS provisions are applicable, wherever the e-commerce themselves have to pay, there it will not apply. Apart from that, other cases, they will deduct TCS. Now, what is the standard rate of TCS? Standard rate of TCS is 0.5%. In TDS, it was 1%. In case of e-commerce, it is 0.5%. Matlab 0.5% CGST, 0.5% SGST, totally 1%. And when it is an interstate transaction, it will be 1% itself. What is the value on which TDS will be deducted? On the aggregate value of taxable supplies, whatever supply is happening through e-commerce, less all the returns. Generally, e-commerce, this is a habitual thing that whatever you order, out of 5 orders, what you're making, 1 you will return. Correct. So returns are predominant. So government has realized that and they've said whatever is the value of supply, reduce the returns. That is called as net value of taxable supplies. On that, the TCS will be applicable. Then what is the crux of TCS? TCS, a person, यहाँ पे आपने जैसे TDS में किया था, location of supplier and location of recipient should be in same state. वैसा झंझट यहाँ पे नहीं है. There is no such requirement that location of supplier and recipient will be here. Threshold limit, no threshold limit. Person liable to collect tax at source is an e-commerce operator. Is there any threshold limit? No threshold limit. What is the rate of collection? 1%. Matlab CGST 0.5%, SGST 0.5%, or just IGST of 1%. What is the value of collection of tax at source? Net value. Now it is 0.5%. Correct. So net value of collection will be net value of supply will be the value on which you'll do the collection. Matlab sales minus returns. Again, due date of TCS जो payment करना है government को, that is by 10th from the end of the month. Okay. TCS was very small. TDS was very lengthier. Any questions on TDS and TCS? Correct. So the rate of TCS mentioned in the book is 0.25. So that has got reduced. Earlier it was 0.5%, 0.5%. Now it's reduced to 0.5% both put together. Yes, Tambeshwari, what is your question for TCS 10 months? So September TCS will be submitted by 10th of October. You're right.
Oh, sorry, sir. My mistake. It say the month. It is for the days for the question asked for that. मतलब कि सर TCS का सर एक क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करवा दीजिए ना.
Okay. There's no limit or restriction. Correct. There's no limit or restriction. For January, we'll deduct by the 10th of February. Correct. Yes, Pooja, you can unmute yourself.
Sir, government treasury means
Government,
treasury.
that is the government ke khata. So when will you make the payment of TDS? That is called as government treasury.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, there are no practical questions in the module. What I'll do is I'll prepare one and I'll take it up because I have not prepared any practical questions on this. I will prepare one and I'll let you. So what is GSTR 8? GSTR 8 is the return which the e-commerce are required to file for this TDS deductions. So whatever TDS deductions they do, they will have to file it through this GSTR 8. So in TDS where location of supplier, place of recipient and place of supply are in 3 different states, then TDS will be applicable? No. If all the 3 are in different state, which means the location of supplier and place of recipient are in different state, then TDS will not be deducted. For revisions, Mahi, you don't have to get into whole thing. Since you have understood the whole thing, you mention your basic pointers. You have your own pointers, which is unique for you because you have Saransh. It will help you. But if you want to bring it down further, you can make your own notes so that it will help you for your revision. How to get Saransh? You will get it on the Board of Studies portal itself. Just log in to your Board of Studies BOS ICAI. There you will get intermediate final, select intermediate. There you have study material and other things. There you go to Saransh, you will get it. Correct. Study material, my notes, and Saransh is more than enough. Correct. So the PPT also, if you go through on a quick mode, that will also help you. Correct. Who is deputy commissioner? So it's a commissioner, deputy commissioner. They're all the ranks or the positions which is given by the department to various authorities. So deputy commissioner is the one below the commissioner. So that is the level under the law. Yeah, sure. I will upload the chapter PPTs. Correct, Kasal. The due date for submit TCS is within 10 days of the month where the TCS has been deducted. Correct. So if TCS has been deducted in this month, say on the 1st or 30th, दोनों के लिए by 10th you have to remit it. It's not 30 days from the date of deducting. Full month के लिए you have to remit it by the 10th. Okay, I will take a practical question in the next session. So now, since we have time, we'll touch base on the basics of the returns chapter. Okay, this is the last chapter. In this, what do we have? Very simple. कि आपको returns कैसे file करना है or what are all the types of returns. Okay, so we'll just touch base on basics of returns. Then we'll get into the specific returns, what is required in the next session. We will touch base on the returns to some extent. Since TDS and TCS is very easily understood, but of course, few students are asking for practical questions on TDS and TCS. I will bring that up in the next session. First thing, we'll do the practical sessions and then go on the returns part. Any other doubts in case you have from any other chapter, you can ask us. Otherwise, we'll straight away go to returns. TDS and TCS percentage, Riddhi, is simple. On TDS, 1%. On TCS, 0.5%. And this is the combined. So if it is CGST and SGST, half of it. In TDS, it is 2% and TCS, it is 0.5%. Okay, some questions on calculation of interest under section 50. Okay, so I'll note down all these questions. Okay. Returns basically what is a return? I'm giving you something in return. When you come to my house, I'm giving you a return gift. Is that a return? That is one of the meaning of returns. But in terms of taxation, returns means a statement or a document wherein you give information to the department. That is called as a return. Income tax return. ITR is a return, correct? So you file your information through a return that is called as a return under the taxation. In GST, what do you give information? You give information of your supplies. You give information of the taxes what you're paid on a monthly basis. And few people will give it on a quarterly basis, and few more people will give it on a annual basis. So whatever information we give to the department, why should we give? Because we are following a system of self-assessment. In self-assessment, what happens? We do all the transactions. The government doesn't come to us for every transaction. They're giving us independence. Since they're giving us independence to do all the transactions, it is right for them to ask information saying that what all transactions you have done. Now you give me that information. I'm not coming to you every day and not troubling you in your business. So complete your transactions and give me a statement in terms of this return on a monthly basis. So this monthly basis, we will see the information in the return. Return is a statement containing details of incomes and supplies, correct? Different types of return are there for different category of peoples. One is a regular taxpayer. Second is a NRTP, non-resident taxpayer. Then you'll have casual taxable person, a composition person, a UIN holder. So different types of return are mentioned for different types of people. Returns should provide facts. The main reason why we are filing return is that we have to provide facts, not our interpretations. Because interpretations you can come in terms of a assessment, but in the return you have to only give facts. Specified format is there, so you do not have to worry saying that okay, I will give it in different format, or which format I have to give, I don't know. There is a format which is specified. We have to give the information in this specified format itself. So this format will take care of all the provisions of the law. It will take consideration of all the sections of the act. And what is the purpose of returns? It is a mode of transfer of information to the tax administrator. Because आपको बोल दिया पूरा transactions करो. Now, how will department get to know what is the transactions you have done? They will get to know once you file your returns. More, less, loss, whatever it is. If you have done more transactions, also you have to give it in your returns. And you file less transactions. When you have less transactions, still same return has to be filed. The returns, which is GSTR 1 and 3B, will be the same. Correct? If you have more transactions, more line items will come. If you have less transactions, less items will come. And GSTR 3B, only the values you'll enter. So it is a uniform statement for everybody. And it is basically to the tax administrator saying that this is what is the transaction I've done. I have to pay you this much tax. That will come in the GSTR 1. And when we file GSTR 3B, that data of sales in GSTR 1 you will take all your input tax credit, net it off, and say this is my liability. So this is what we are doing in terms of a return. Then it compliance verification program. It ensures that the taxpayer is compliant. It is the main purpose is that you have to be compliant. How will you be compliant? By filing the returns on a timely basis. So this is the second purpose of filing the return. Third is finalization of tax liabilities. Whatever is your tax liabilities is getting finalized here. Okay. Otherwise it will be open-ended, saying that, okay, this month sales are made, but I don't have money, I'll file it in next month. Unless and until there is a return, unless and until there is a timeline, unless and until there's a due date, the liability does not get crystallized. So to crystallize this liability, it helps in freezing of what is your tax liability. Then it provides necessary inputs for taking policy decisions, mainly when the government has to decide on policies, right? Most of you would have heard the latest policy decision of popcorns. You have seen in the media, right? What is this decision on popcorns? Correct. We all know this 8% normal, 18% on caramel popcorn. So how did the government get to know this? By that information, since we are providing information through HSN code, right? So we gave all the details of HSN code, and the government said that when somebody is paying higher value for a caramel popcorn and they are able to afford it, so why can't they afford a higher rate? Right? So that's why it is helping to make such policy decisions. Might be it's very funny. We have seen a lot of memes, but that's not the objective of the government. The objective government did not want any of these things. It happened because it seems funny to them. But ultimately, it's a policy decision of the government through our returns. This policy decisions are happening that we are giving the information. Government is getting information saying that where is the rate of tax higher, where is the rate of tax lower, where is the sales increasing, right? When the price is increasing, we can pay the higher price. Then why can't we pay higher tax? That is the logic what the government has applied in this case of popcorn. But apart from the funny part of it, this is the way how the government gets the information for all their policy decision matters. So compliance verification programs, yes, compliance verification program is means that when anybody is registered, he wants to be compliant. How will he be compliant unless a return is stated to him, saying that you have to file a return? He'll just say, I'm compliant. Is that sufficient? No. He will have to ensure that he files the returns, right? So it helps this giving him a green signal that yes, you are compliant. अगर returns ही नहीं होगा तो फिर compliance कैसे करोगे आप, right? So returns helps in yourself or your company in establishing that this is a compliance verification program. Then management of audit and anti-evasion programs of tax administration. So you will see that some suppliers are supplying huge value. They're showing huge value in the GSTR1, but very less value in just GSTR3B, right? क्योंकि GSTR1 में आपको कुछ टैक्स पे नहीं करना पड़ता है, you have to only show all your supplies. But in GSTR3B, where you have to pay your taxes. So in GSTR1, you'll have 1 crore rupees, and in your GSTR3B, you'll have just 10 lakh rupees. Which means what? You have supplied so much, but you have not paid taxes. Such matters. Another example, in your GSTR2B, where the supplier is supplying to you, there you have value of only 1 lakh, but you are claiming input tax of 10 lakh rupees. Which means what? You're claiming more credit than what the supplier or what purchases you've made. There could be various reasons for it, but at least at a glance, the government can ask you saying that why have you claimed more? Then you give reasons. That is secondary. But ultimately, the government is able to trigger saying that what are all things which you are not doing correctly, which you're supposed to do. Right? So this helps in managing, doing the audit and anti-evasion. कि टैक्स का इवेजन नहीं होना चाहिए, टैक्स की चोरी नहीं होनी चाहिए. That is called as anti-evasion. Okay, such anti-evasion programs is also there, is possible because of our returns. Now, what are the types of returns we have? We have various types of returns. One is persons who file monthly returns are required to file one annual return also. Is it necessary? Pallavi, there is something called as a monthly returns or quarterly returns in GSTR 1 and 3B. Then you have an annual return, which is called as GSTR 9. So in the law, there is no threshold limit, but the government has the power to set up a threshold limit. So every year, the limit for GSTR 9 is set at a limit of 2 crores. So if you have turnover more than 2 crores, then only you file your GSTR 1, GSTR 9, which is your annual return. If your threshold limit is less than 2 crores, then you don't have to file your GSTR 9. It is an optional thing below 9 crores. If you want to file, you can still file. But for a person who's having turnover more than 2 crores, they have to definitely file the GSTR 9. And then after filing 9, there is another reconciliation between your returns and your books. Because GSTR 9 is an annual return based on the returns what you have filed. Now, to reconcile whether the returns and your books of accounts is the same, there is another statement called as GSTR 9C. So, in the GSTR 9C, you do a reconciliation between the returns, that is the GSTR 9, and your books of accounts in GSTR 9C. This GSTR 9C is applicable for a person who's having turnover more than 5 crores. Okay, so below 2 crores, nothing is to be filed, just monthly returns. Above 2 crores, file your annual return in GSTR 9. Then 2 to 5 crores, just file your annual returns. But above 5 crores, you have to file your annual returns in GSTR 9 and reconciliation statement in 9C, both. So 3 slabs. Below 2 crores, 0, 2 to 5 GSTR 9, 5 and above 9 and 9C. Okay. Furnishing of details of outward supplies. Whatever outward supplies you've made, that you will file in your GSTR 1. In your GSTR 1, all your supplies will be mentioned. Okay. Outward supplies will be mentioned in GSTR 1. Furnishing of details of outward supply. Now, when you say outward supply, on that you have to pay taxes. Correct? Now, there is something called as reverse charge. Should we disclose GST of reverse charge also in GSTR 1? The reason is I am liable to pay taxes. Now, if I purchase something from a goods transport agency, I have to pay taxes on that. So who should include that in his GSTR 1? Fine, Hardik. Fine, Mahi, but let me know. My question is simple. Yeah, you have answered that. It will be included in GSTR 1 of the recipient. Okay. Hardik, I'm just asking in whose GSTR 1 it will appear. Supplier needs to file GSTR 1. Who makes outward supply is what Pallavi is saying. So there are two answers. Both one is saying supplier, other person is saying recipient. Any other answers? Supplier. Okay. Supplier itself. Okay. But can supplier to tax नहीं pay कर रहा है ना? What will the supplier gain by including it in outward supplies? आरसीएम तो रिसिपिएंट है, करेक्ट। तो फिर सप्लायर कैसे? लेकिन आरसीएम रिसिपिएंट है माही, लेकिन सप्लायर तो रहेगा ना, कोई ना कोई सप्लाई करेगा तब आप रिसिपिएंट बनोगे। जैसे गुड्स ट्रांसपोर्ट एजेंसी का एग्जांपल लेते हैं, गुड्स ट्रांसपोर्ट एजेंसी ने आपको सप्लाई दिया है, करेक्ट। तो जीएसटीआर 1 सप्लायर वो जीटीए के जीएसटीआर 1 में आएगा या आपके जीएसटीआर 1 में? आई एम जस्ट आस्किंग दैट क्वेश्चन। Supplier. Okay. Mixed reaction है. Few people are saying registered person, few people are saying recipient and things. The simple answer आपकी screen पे ही है. Furnishing of details of outward supplies. It is not reverse charge या tax payable. Okay. It is simply saying that furnishing of details of outward supplies in GSTR 1. So जब GTA आपको सप्लाई करता है, टैक्स आप भरोगे, लेकिन आपके जीएसटीआर 1 में आप इंक्लूड नहीं करोगे। ये जीटीए के अगर रजिस्टर्ड है तो उसके जीएसटीआर 1 में आएगा, अगर वो रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है तो फाइल नहीं करेगा। ठीक है, सो डोंट गेट कंफ्यूज दैट सिंस वी आर सेइंग जीएसटी विल बी आउटवर्ड सप्लाई एंड रिसिपिएंट इज पेइंग अंडर रिवर्स चार्ज, दिस विल बी इंक्लूडेड इन जीएसटीआर 1। ऐसा नहीं है, इट विल बी इंक्लूडेड इन द सप्लायर्स जीएसटीआर 1 इटसेल्फ। आपको जो टैक्स पेमेंट करना है वो आप 3B में डिस्क्लोज करके पे कीजिए। लेकिन आपको आपके GSTR1 में रिवर्स चार्ज की डिटेल्स डालने की जरूरत नहीं है. Don't include the details of reverse charge in your GSTR1. Only whatever is your sales, whatever is your outward supplies, include only that in your GSTR1. Okay. Then furnishing of details under section 39. 39 फर्स्ट तो GSTR1 फाइल कर दिया आपने, 37 में, अभी 39 में आपको रिटर्न्स फाइल करना है, which is in terms of GSTR3B. What is this GSTR3B? This is a return of your outward supply less your inward supply. आउटवर्ड माइनस इनवर्ड जो नेट है वो आपको GSTR3B में फाइल करना है. समरी रिटर्न करेक्ट, जो भी सेल्स है. और GSTR1 इज अ डिटेल्ड. GSTR1 में आपको इनवॉइस नंबर, पार्टी नेम, पार्टी का GST एंड एवरीथिंग हैज टू बी डिस्क्लोज. लेकिन GSTR3B बहुत छोटा रिटर्न है, लेकिन वर्किंग्स पूरा करना पड़ेगा आपको, क्योंकि विदाउट वर्किंग्स यू विल नॉट बी एबल टू फाइल इट. GSTR3B is a summary of your sales, total sale value, total tax, CGST, SGST, IGST, whatever is the reverse charge you have to pay, input tax credit, what input tax you have claimed, what input tax you are claiming as a recipient, and what is your रिवर्सल, क्योंकि इनपुट टैक्स का रिवर्सल भी हमने देखा इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट में. ऑल ऑफ दैट हैज टू बी डिस्क्लोज. फिर जो नेट लायबिलिटी है वो GSTR3B में आएगा. ठीक है. सो GSTR3B इज अ समरी रिटर्न ऑफ टोटल. GSTR1 जनरली कब फाइल करते हैं? बाय 11th ऑफ द सब्सिक्वेंट मंथ, एंड GSTR3B बाय द 22nd ऑफ द सब्सिक्वेंट मंथ. 20 or 22nd डिपेंड्स ऑन द टर्नओवर एंड द स्टेट. ओके. देन GSTR4 कॉम्पोजिशन टैक्स पेयर, जो साल में एक ही रिटर्न फाइल करेगा वो फाइल करेगा GSTR4. Okay, so monthly return filers will be 3B, quarterly return filers also will be 3B. Annual return filers जो regular taxpayers है उनके लिए annual नहीं है, सिर्फ composition taxpayer के लिए है GSTR4. ठीक है. And GSTR5 is a return to be filed by a non-resident taxable person. ओके, इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? कैजुअल टैक्सेबल पर्सन का मेंशन नहीं है यहाँ पे. सो कैजुअल टैक्सेबल पर्सन भी GSTR3B ही फाइल करेगा द नॉर्मल रिटर्न, एंड NRTP नॉन रेसिडेंट टैक्सेबल पर्सन विल फाइल GSTR5. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दीज इंपॉर्टेंट रिटर्न्स देयर आर अदर रिटर्न्स. वन इज फर्स्ट रिटर्न. जब आप रजिस्टर करते हो और आपका रजिस्ट्रेशन आता नहीं है, तब तक जो डेटा जो भी है from the date of application of registration till the date of receiving registration, that information will give it in a return called as a first return. Somebody was asking GSTR 8. Yes, जो TCS deduct करते हैं उनके लिए GSTR 8 है. Then annual returns in 9, 9A, 9B. So regular tax payable है उसके 9, 9A will be for composition taxpayer and 9B will for NRTPs. Then a final return, मतलब जब आपका cancellation हो गया है, कैंसलेशन के बाद आपको एक रिटर्न फाइल करना पड़ेगा सेइंग दैट देयर आर नोट लायबिलिटीज, मेरे पास कुछ लायबिलिटी नहीं है. दैट विल बी इन टर्म्स ऑफ GSTR 10, व्हिच इज कॉल्ड एज अ फाइनल रिटर्न. ओके. नाउ लास्ट इज इन टर्म्स ऑफ UIN. हु इज अ UIN? We have discussed, right? Who is a UIN holder? Embassy. Okay. उसके अलावा so UIN doesn't do any supply, Hardik. A person embassy registered will come to India and they will not do any supply because they're not supposed to do any supply. They're only supposed to represent that country in India. So when we supply to them, right, because they will take procurement, UN bodies, yes, they are the people who take services. So when they take services, we will charge GST normally. They will have to take all that details and apply for refund. They are called as UIN holders. Okay, they do not supply at all. They do not supply anything. Okay, they may charge something, say for attestation services and things, but that's not a supply. That is in terms of their statutory duty they have to do. Okay. Unique identification number. Unique identification number is a full form of UIN holder. Cancellation means final return. कैंसिलेशन मीन्स आपका GST रजिस्ट्रेशन में ही आपका पास GST रजिस्ट्रेशन है, आपने कैंसिल कर दिया या फिर ऑफिसर ने कैंसिल कर दिया, तब क्या होगा? तब आपको एक फाइनल रिटर्न फाइल करना पड़ेगा, उसे कहते हैं फाइनल रिटर्न। ओके, ऑल रिटर्न्स अंडर जीएसटी आर टू बी फाइल्ड इलेक्ट्रॉनिकली। उत्तर प्रदेश में एक अलग फॉर्मेट है, आंध्र प्रदेश में एक फॉर्मेट है, हिमाचल में एक फॉर्मेट है, नहीं, इट इज वन फॉर्मेट फॉर एवरीवन। एक एक कॉमन फॉर्मेट है और आपको एक ही फॉर्मेट का रिटर्न फाइल करना पड़ेगा, और ऑल द रिटर्न्स की मैन्युअली फाइल करना है, नहीं, आपको एक ही रिटर्न फाइल करना पड़ेगा, नॉट अ सेपरेट रिटर्न या एक स्टेट का अलग रिटर्न है, वैसा नहीं, एक ही फॉर्मेट है फॉर एवरीबडी इन इंडिया। और इसी रिटर्न में आपको एक सीजीएसटी के लिए रिटर्न, एक एसजीएसटी के लिए रिटर्न, एक आईजीएसटी के लिए नहीं, एक ही रिटर्न में सभी सप्लाईज टैक्स का क्लासिफिकेशन करना है और आपको फाइल करना है। So this was the basics on our returns. With this, we will proceed in the next class on further detailing of the returns. 31st September and 31st November date for return on GSTR 3B. No, I didn't understand your question, Tamreshwari. करेक्ट, फॉर आईटीसी, जो आपको आईटीसी क्लेम करना है एक साल का, यू कैन क्लेम इट, वो कब तक क्लेम कर सकते हो, बिफोर 30th November, 31st November तो होगा ही नहीं, 30th November आर द ड्यू डेट ऑफ फाइलिंग रिटर्न विच एवर इज अर्लियर। 30th September वो किसी और के लिए है, लेकिन आपको आईटीसी क्लेम करना है तो फिर आपको 30th November या ड्यू डेट ऑफ फाइलिंग एनुअल रिटर्न उसके पहले करना है। ठीक है, नाउ 30th September का भी एक रेलेवेंस है, जब आपके सप्लायर ने जीएसटीआर 3B फाइल नहीं किया है, आपने आईटीसी ले लिया और आप देख रहे हो कि ईयर खत्म होने के बाद भी द सप्लायर हैज नॉट फाइल द रिटर्न्स, ठीक है, तब आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि उसको टाइम देना पड़ेगा कि एटलीस्ट 30th September तक तो तुम रिटर्न फाइल कर लो। अगर वो 30th September तक रिटर्न फाइल नहीं करता है तो फिर आपको आपका इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज द सप्लायर हैज नॉट फाइल्ड द 3B। टाइम पे फाइल करना चाहिए, टाइम पे फाइल नहीं किया तो लेट फाइल करो। लेट भी कब तक, एटलीस्ट बाई 30th September फाइल करो भाई। 30th September तक आप फाइल नहीं करते हो तो फिर मुझे 30th November तक रिवर्स करना पड़ेगा। दैट इज द रेलेवेंस ऑफ 30th September एंड 30th November। Is it clear? Very nice. Any more questions? Okay, so we'll call it a day and we'll catch back on Thursday on the final understanding of the returns. Okay, have a good time. Enjoy your rest of the day with the festivities and have good fun. Yes, sir.